The moon used to be our constant, rising, falling, tugging at the tides like a quiet guardian overhead. Now the night sky is a hollow shell, black, empty, wrong. I don't know if it disappeared all at once, or if it faded gradually, slipping out of existence while no one was watching. Maybe that's the point. We were never watching when it really mattered. The world didn't end in fire or flood. It ended in stillness, slow and suffocating, like the breath before a scream. The oceans were the first to change. They crept inland, inch by inch until entire coastlines were devoured. Cities like Miami, Dhaka, Manila, they're memories now, buried beneath saltwater and silence. No rescue ever came, no headlines, just a quiet blue erasure. Then came the droughts. The great rivers, the Nile, the Mississippi, the Amazon, cracked like old paint, their riverbeds curling and splitting under a sky that hadn't cried in years. The soil turned to ash, crops withered in the fields, livestock dropped where they stood. I remember the smell, a hot mix of rotting things and ozone like a thunderstorm that never comes. People walked through that air with wet rags over their mouths, as if cloth could stop the collapse. It's hard to describe a world when it no longer resembles anything you knew. Cities were once bright with glass and steel, veins of traffic pulsing with life. Now the skyline looks like broken teeth. Buildings slumped over themselves, highways buried in sand, rust clawing at every exposed surface. If you listen close enough, you can still hear wind dragging bits of plastic across the asphalt. That's all that's left of our empire. Wrappers, signs and shattered things. The sky used to change with the hour. Golden dawns, blue afternoons, soft indigo dusks. Now it stays a bruised grayish red, thick with particles. The sun flickers behind the haze like a dying bulb. It casts no warmth, no shadow, just a sickly light that makes your skin crawl. Nighttime used to be a comfort, the glow of the moon, stars strung like quiet prayers. But when the moon vanished, something snapped. The tides went wild. Migrating animals lost their rhythm. People whispered about gravitational decay, black holes, planetary drift. Theories came and went, but no answers ever stuck. The truth was too big for us, or maybe too late. There's no government anymore, not really. The last emergency broadcast I heard from Washington was a pre-recorded loop, stuttering every 10 minutes with the same hollow phrase, "Remain calm. Assistance is on the way." That was 2 years ago. Now we have pockets, little enclaves clinging to scraps of the old world. Scavenger markets in the ruins of superstores, radio shacks built out of shipping containers. There's a group called the Ashers, burn-scarred nomads who worship the sun like it's a god. They don't speak much, but when they pass through, you offer food and don't ask questions. Then there are the marauders, cannibalistic some say, armed to the teeth. They roam what's left of the interstates in gutted-out trucks, painting their armor with bones and blood. They don't believe in rebuilding, just surviving, just taking. The rest of us? We're somewhere in between. Not saints, not savages, just survivors. I live in what used to be a fire station. The pole's still there, useless now. I power the radio with a pedal generator rigged from an old bicycle. My voice goes out into the static, night after night, hoping someone somewhere still listens. Water is rationed to the drop. Food is whatever you can scrounge or grow in makeshift greenhouse tents sealed against the dust. We salvage old seeds, boil soil clean, pray over sprouts like they're sacred. Some folks trade stories like currency, others trade bullets. Time doesn't feel linear anymore. Without the moon to chart our nights, everything blurs. Hunger, exhaustion, fear. Sleep when you can, not when you should. Dreams come jagged, edged with fire or floods or faces you've lost. I once found a newspaper frozen in mud. The headline read, "The tipping point is closer than we think." They were wrong. It wasn't close. It was already behind us. We just didn't feel the fall until the bottom was gone. Now we listen, we wait, we keep breathing. Not because we know what comes next, but because not breathing feels worse. And when I look up into that blank sky, that hollow space where the moon should be, I tell myself, maybe it's not gone. Maybe it's hiding. Like the rest of us, waiting for the right moment to come back. They call me Rook. At least that's what I go by now. It's not my real name. That one doesn't feel like it belongs to me anymore. It belonged to someone with clean clothes and warm dinners and a place to be at 9 in the morning. Someone with a little house on a tree-lined street, a wife who laughed at his terrible jokes, and a kid who loved space. Loved the moon especially. That man died sometime between the first heat surge and the last tide. Now I'm Rook. Just a voice crackling out through salvaged copper and vacuum tubes. A man broadcasting into a dead sky from a bunker that used to be a fire station. My only companions are rusted equipment, the hum of the pedal generator and the weight of my own memory. Every night I pedal the generator for power and press record. I speak into the static like it matters. Maybe it doesn't, maybe I'm the last one tuned in. But I keep talking. Why? Because silence is the first step toward extinction. I used to be a satellite technician. Ground systems. Not flashy work, but I liked it. There was something comforting about precision. Calibrating dishes, reading signal strength. It made the universe feel like it had order. Like things made sense if you just had the right frequency. Now all the satellites are gone. The last time I checked the telemetry logs, back before the collapse of the central node, it showed a cascade of failures. Systems blinking out one by one, like someone snuffing stars with their fingertips. First comms, then GPS, then weather. One by one, the lights went out. After that, there was no warning when the storms came, or when the moon disappeared. I wasn't broadcasting then. I was running, driving across back roads in a rust bucket Jeep with my son in the back seat and a bag full of canned food. His name was Eli, 7 years old. Had a little plush rocket he carried everywhere, the kind that made a whoosh sound when you squeezed it. I told him we were going on an adventure. Told him we'd find high ground, a safe place. Told him we'd look at the stars once things settled. I lied through my teeth. We didn't make it far. Bandits stopped us on Route 24, somewhere outside of Springfield. One of them had a tire iron. I gave them the Jeep, the food, even my watch. They took everything anyway. I woke up in a ditch, my head bleeding, lips cracked, throat full of gravel. Eli was gone. I never saw him again. I don't tell that part on the radio. Not really. I skirt around it, mention a boy sometimes. A loss, but I can't give it shape. Not fully. If I do, I worry it'll take me under, like a riptide pulling at my ribs. Instead, I talk about the weather. I talk about which roads are clear, which plants are still edible, and which ones have turned. I describe the stars even when they're hidden by ash. I tell stories, real or imagined, of survivors in the north, of solar arrays that still work, of messages caught in the wind. I don't know if they're true, but truth isn't always the point. Sometimes people need a shape to hold on. Doing a map in the fog. To survive, I scavenge. I ride an old bicycle outfitted with a trailer, something I bolted together from spare lawnmower frames and a kiddie wagon. I pedal out during low heat hours and check the bones of the city. Gas, stations, libraries, vending machines no one's bothered to crack. The good stuff's long gone, but sometimes you find treasure in the forgotten places. A sealed can of pears, a half roll of gauze. Once, a fully intact ham radio wrapped in a black trash bag and tucked beneath a school desk. I carried it home, like it was gold. I trade when I can. Old circuit boards, filtered water, recordings of music I salvaged from flash drives. People out there, they value memory now more than anything. A song from the old world? That's currency. I don't sleep well. No one does these days. The air hums with radiation in the hot zones. Nights are too quiet. No crickets, no frogs. Just wind. Sometimes I hear voices outside. Sometimes I dream them. I've learned not to check. If they're real, they don't want help. If they're not, then the emptiness is just playing tricks. I keep a shortwave open most nights. Channel. Line 58, dead air, but I monitor it anyway. There was a woman once, called herself Iris. Used to read poetry over the airwaves from somewhere in the mountains. Her voice was soft, like rain, Said she had a small garden, chickens, hope. Then, one night she said, "If you're listening, stay strong," and signed off. Never heard her again. But I keep going. Not because I think I'll find her, or Eli, or some miracle fix waiting just beyond the ridge. I keep going because stopping feels like betrayal. To them, to myself, and to whoever might be listening. I tell myself someone's always listening. Sometimes. I imagine a kid out there, like Eli, tuning into a radio made from a lunchbox and copper wire, huddled beneath a metal roof. Maybe he's scared. Maybe he's alone. But maybe my voice reaches him. Maybe he hears me say, "You're not alone. You matter, keep breathing, keep walking." And maybe that's enough. My bones ache more than they used to. Knees click, shoulders grind. Every pedal stroke on the generator is a reminder that the body is finite, and the world doesn't care. But I've learned to bend with the wind. Learned how to make water from condensation traps. How to turn charcoal into crude filters. How to grow bitter greens under UV lamps scavenged from abandoned greenhouses. Survival is 1,000 small tricks, practiced daily, learned through scars. I don't keep mirrors anymore. No need to know what's changed in my face. I track time through voice logs and notebooks. Draw stars when I can see them. Write about the moon, even if it's gone. I think the moon left us when we stopped looking up. Stopped believing in the night as something beautiful. I talk about it every now and then. Describe it like it's still there. Waxing, waning, pulling the tides. A lighthouse in the dark, people write back sometimes. Scribbled notes passed between trading posts. Scanned messages beamed shortwave from distant towers. One said, "You make it easier to breathe. That's why I keep going. That's what keeps me human. Not survival for its own sake, but the spark, the transmission, the echo that says we're not lost yet, not completely. So I'll keep pedaling, keep talking, keep sending stories into the dark, because even in a world without the moon, voices can still rise, and maybe that's enough light to keep us moving forward. If this reaches you, I want you to stop what you're doing, just for a minute, and listen, not with your ears, but with your bones, because the ground's been talking lately. And it's not whispering anymore. It's groaning. Something's shifting beneath us. The kind of shift you feel deep in your gut, like when a building creaks, right before it collapses. Like the earth is exhaling one final time after holding its breath for too long. The drought is no longer something we survive through. It's become a noose tightening every single day. The last rainfall we had here was 147 days ago. Just a light mist. Barely enough to settle the dust. Before that, real rain hadn't fallen in nearly 2 years. Not a storm, not a downpour, just scattered sighs from a sky that's long since dried out. Now the rivers are gone. Not just dry, gone. The Missouri, the Mississippi, the Columbia, they're dust chasms, cracked and splintered like broken porcelain. You can walk their beds and find the wreckage of bridges, sunken boats, bones. What was once the pulse of the continent is now fossilized history. The air hangs heavy with salt and static. Not a bird in sight. No frogs. No dragonflies. Insects are dying off faster than we expected. The ecosystem's web is unraveling strand by strand, and we're all caught in it. Water used to be something we wasted. We flushed it, sprayed it on golf courses, bottled it into plastic and shipped it across oceans. Now a bottle cap's worth can be traded for a night's shelter. My filters are failing. I had 2 gravity-fed units, ceramic core, carbon mesh, good tech. Got me through the first stage of the collapse, but the membranes are clogged now. No replacements in sight, just rust, sludge, and the kind of bacteria you learn not to name. The heat is making it worse. It's no longer seasonal, it's constant. We used to have cycles, summer, fall, winter. You remember that. Leaves changing, snowfall. Now it's just one long burn. Daytime temperatures hover near 53 degrees Celsius, 127 degrees. That's not just uncomfortable, that's deadly. Human skin begins to break down after extended exposure above. You can't walk outside without shielding every inch of yourself. or you'll start cooking from the outside in. Metal surfaces melt, asphalt liquefies, and people, they collapse. I saw a man walking down Route 9 last week, dressed in torn blankets, plastic bags wrapped around his boots. He was dragging a shopping cart with a solar panel lashed to the... It looked like he was carrying a battery bank. Smart. But his skin had split across his shoulders. He was bleeding from the heat. I offered him water, what little I had, but he refused. Said he was heading north. Said he heard glaciers. We're leaking. That's what it's come to. We chase rumors of ice like it's gold. Maybe it is. The crisis. It's not just one thing anymore. It's not just the drought. It's the cascading failure of systems that used to hold the world in balance. The soil's gone sterile. Years of scorching sun and no crop rotation have killed the microbes that make Earth alive. What little food we grow is bitter, stringy, nutrient-poor. Cornfields have turned into husks. Wheat refuses to sprout. Even weeds are wilting. Fuel? That's another ghost. Fossil reserves were long spent in the scramble. Refining stopped when the electrical grid collapsed in most regions. Now we rely on scavenged ethanol, hand-cranked dynamos, pedal-powered generators. Anything that can coax a spark from the void. Even solar isn't reliable anymore. The ash in the sky from old wildfires dims the sun's rays just enough to reduce. Panel efficiency. Too much soot. Not enough light. I keep a journal of the changes. Not because it helps, but because I need to understand. It's the technician in me. If I can track it, maybe I can predict it. Here's what I've logged. Average daily highs have increased 3.7 degrees Celsius globally since the last pre-collapse report. Ocean currents in the Atlantic have stalled. That's disrupted rainfall patterns across entire continents. Jet streams have shifted, further north, taking any hope of precipitation with them. Atmospheric CO2 levels spiked past 520 ppm before the satellites died. That's beyond catastrophic. It's suicidal. Permafrost melt in Siberia released dormant pathogens. 2 outbreaks in the Yukon, 1 in Mongolia. Quarantine failed. No. Central Health Authority to respond. And then there's the moon, or rather, the absence of it. I know that sounds strange, maybe even absurd, but those of you listening, those who still go outside, who still watch, you've seen it too. It's not just hidden, it's missing. The tides are wrong. The night sky feels incomplete. Crops that once relied on lunar cycles are wilting. No more spawning fish. Migratory animals are disoriented. There's a stillness in the night that you don't feel in your bones. It's deeper than that. Like something divine has been unplugged. Some say it's a trick. Atmospheric shrouding. Some kind of government experiment gone wrong. Others whisper about gravitational shifts, orbital collapse, rogue planetary bodies. I don't know. I'm not an astrophysicist. I just know what I feel. And what I feel is wrong. We're running out of time. Every sunrise burns hotter than the last. Every breath tastes more like metal. And every day the water table drops, a little farther into the unreachable deep. I've been rationing. A quarter liter per day, if I can manage. It keeps the headaches at bay, barely. I save the cleanest water for barter and the sick, and I boil everything else. I've resorted to wringing moisture from plastic sheeting at dawn. Condensation catchers strung across collapsed scaffolding. It's not much, a few mouthfuls per trap. But sometimes, that's the difference between another day and the end. There's something happening to people too, not just physically, mentally. The heat gets inside your thoughts, bakes your memory. People forget names, directions. They wander out during high noon hours without protection. Some stop speaking altogether. I saw a child last week in the market district, just standing there, staring up at the sky like she was waiting for something to return. When I asked her name, she just said, "It's too loud inside." Whatever that means, and yet, we persist. Why? Because the alternative is to vanish. Because even if the Earth is dying, we don't have to die with it. Not like this. Not without fighting to remember who we were. So I keep broadcasting. I send out maps of where the groundwater still flows. I warn travelers where the heat domes settle thickest. I read old stories, share recipes for edible bark and solar still construction. Once, I even played a recording of whale songs. Someone sent me a tape, said it was the last thing they heard on a Pacific research buoy before communications went dead. It sounded like mourning, but also like memory. I won't lie to you. Things are getting worse. The moisture farms in the west have shut down, one by one. They say the air's too dry now to extract even residual vapor. People have started digging, old-school wells, searching for aquifers. But many are poisoned by industrial runoff or simply bone dry. Inland, the lakes are receding like retreating armies. You can walk across the beds of what used to be reservoirs, find the cracked hulls of boats, the skeletons of fish. Once, I found a rusted pickup with a wedding ring still on the dashboard. Someone planned a life there, a family, a future. Now it's all just dust. But dust can still carry seeds. Maybe that's why I haven't given up yet. Even now, especially now, I believe in the stubbornness of life. Not the flourishing kind. No, that age is over. But the quiet kind. The cracked weed growing through a scorched sidewalk. The voice in the static. The old man who pedals to keep the signal alive. If you're hearing this, keep your water sealed tight. Travel at dawn or dusk. Avoid the valleys, heat sinks form there, and don't let go. If you see vultures, walk the other way. They follow collapse. And always, always test your soil before planting. This isn't the world we were promised, but it's the one we've inherited. And as long as we're breathing, we've still got time to shape what comes next. Even if it's shaped from ash and silence. You're listening to Apocalypse Radio. Stay cool, stay sharp, stay human, rook out. If you've made it this far, if you've kept the crank turning, kept the batteries warm and the antenna raised, then maybe you'll understand what I'm about to say. Hope is dangerous, not because it's false, but because it can lead you straight into the fire. I lost the last of my water supply 3 days ago. 2 of the containers split open in the heat. Polycarbonate warps under sun exposure now, and I had no backup vessels. What was left seeped into the cracked earth like an offering, vanishing before I could react. I'd been surviving on less than 250 milliliters a day. Now, nothing. No clouds, no dew, no backup. Just me and the hum of this broken world. The solar panel I scavenged from a derelict rooftop isn't pulling enough current. Between the ash in the sky and the thickening cloud of dust storms rolling in from the east, my charge level has dropped to single digits. The radio barely has enough juice to go live for 20 minutes a day. I ration my words now. Like water. Like blood. And then yesterday, something new. A voice, not static, not a loop or echo or a pirate rebroadcast. A live voice, crackling through the southern band, hidden in the tremble of old frequencies. I almost didn't believe it. I thought it was another anomaly, like the phantom music some people say they hear in the wind. But this wasn't a hallucination. The signal was faint, broken, but real. She said, "This is Ember Station." Repeat, Ember Station. Located near the river spine, running water, solar tech. We're accepting new survivors. Proceed with caution. Trust must be earned. I dropped my coffee can microphone. Just stared at the speaker like it had just started. Bleeding, running water. It sounded like something from a fairy tale. But the words lit something inside me I hadn't felt in a long time. Movement. Not the kind driven by panic or duty, but the kind that belongs to someone who might have a future again. But here's the thing. People lie. Even now in the dirt and the dark. People lie. Sometimes they think it's for a good reason. Sometimes it's just to watch hope shatter in someone else's eyes. And sometimes they lie because they're desperate, and they need you to walk into their trap. I know this because I've done it myself. Back in year 1, I faked a transmission. Claimed I had antibiotics and shade. Tried to bait anyone nearby. I was starving. My leg was infected from a barbed wire scrape. I didn't think I'd live more than 2 days. A woman responded. She came alone. She was kind, and I couldn't do it. I let her take half my rations. She stitched my leg and left. Before dawn, I still hear her voice sometimes. I never asked her name. Maybe Ember Station is like her, or maybe it's a trap. The decision isn't simple. Leaving the station here means abandoning everything I've built. The tower, the broadcasts, the scavenged maps, the solar net, the signal, boosters, the hand crank generator, and the one spot on this shattered Earth where I still feel something like control. But staying means death. I give it 72 hours, max, before the radio's dead. The power's almost out. The canisters are empty. My hands are trembling from dehydration. The station's failing. The city's collapsing in slow motion. Structures that once offered shade are crumbling. Sunlight slips through broken beams and turns everything into a furnace. And just yesterday I saw them again, raiders. They're leaner now. More desperate. Less tactical, more animal. I watched from the scaffolding as they descended on a family camped out in the parking deck below. A mother, 2 teens. They'd been burning trash for warmth, gave away their position. It was over in minutes. I didn't fire a shot. Couldn't risk giving away my own location. I wish I could say I felt something afterward. Grief, guilt, rage, but mostly I felt empty, because I've seen it too many times now. This is the new law of the land. If you are seen, you are hunted. The sky is worse today. There's a heat storm building over the horizon. Copper-colored clouds streaking like veins across the edge of the world. You don't hear thunder anymore, just pressure. Weight. Like the planet itself is pressing down on you, daring you to move. I packed what I could. Half a pouch of dried lentils, a cracked solar compass, 2 knives, a photo of my sister, now blurred. From sweat and salt, a roll of old medical gauze, my last clean bandage, no map. Just coordinates I etched into a strip of copper with a salvaged soldering pen. 38 pour for 1 again. 92.85 degree W. Somewhere near what used to be the river spine. Somewhere near Ember Station. I've heard rumors like this before. Communities that still function. A hidden dam still generating power. A geothermal facility tapped into deep, cold groundwater. An AI compound still managing vertical farms. A group of hydroponic engineers surviving inside an abandoned water park. Every one of them ends the same way. Hope, journey, disappointment, or worse. But I need to believe this one's real, because I've hit the edge. The journey starts rough. I travel at dusk, when the sun slips low and the land cools just enough to breathe. I wrap my face in scrap fabric soaked in crushed aloe and charcoal. Keeps the worst of the particles out. Every mile is a gamble. I avoid the open roads. Stick to drainage canals, old service tunnels, anywhere a vehicle can't follow. Raiders don't walk much. They ride what they can fuel, and they leave. Traps where they know desperate people wander. I cross the old riverbed by foot. It's all salt now. A crusted basin riddled with bones. Animal and human. Halfway through, I find a corpse that hasn't fully decayed. She's wearing a makeshift badge. H-20 Surveyor, Baton Sector. That was a real role once. Government assigned. Water hunters. Check her pack. She's carrying a weathered notebook sealed in plastic. Inside, elevation notes, soil readings, a hand-sketched map, and 2 circled coordinates. One of them matches the strip of copper in my pocket. I whisper, thanks. I keep going. The 3rd night I meet someone, not by choice. He's been shadowing me for hours. I can feel it. The unnatural stillness behind me, the rhythm of my own footsteps slightly out of sync. At a collapsed overpass, I stop and wait. He steps out. Late 30s, burned brown by the sun, face covered in soot, eyes sharp, holding a crowbar. One hand a burlap sack in the other. You heading for Ember? He asks. I say nothing. He shrugs. Me too, don't worry. I ain't looking to share supplies. Just figured 2 ghosts are harder to kill than 1. I don't trust him. Not yet, but I let him walk behind me. His name is Keel. Says he used to teach chemistry. Community college before the fall. He shows me how to extract drinkable water from sun-scorched vines. tells me which soils trap toxins, recites pH levels, and talks about residual aquifer memory, like the planet's just confused and might still snap out of this nightmare. He's either brilliant or mad, maybe both. But he's useful, and maybe that's enough. A storm hits too, nights later. Not a rainstorm. Those don't happen anymore. This is a dry storm. A heat spiral. The sky turns bronze. Lightning dances horizontally across the cloud line. The static makes your skin crawl. Your teeth buzz. Electronics fry if they're unshielded. Keel and I wedge ourselves into an old water treatment station. It stinks of sulfur and loss. We wait 12 hours for the worst to pass. Inside, he tells me something I haven't heard in a long time. Ember's real. I met a girl who made it out of there once. Said they had cold wells. A filtration rig, powered by solar arrays mounted on kites. Skytech. They figured out how to lift the panels above the ash layer. Sounds insane. Sounds possible. But Ember might not be a haven. It might be a fortress. Places with water don't open their doors easily. If we show up empty-handed, they might shoot first, or enslave us, or worse. There's a moral rot that comes with scarcity. And I've seen what kindness turns into when it's not returned. I try to sleep that night, but I keep hearing the hum of my old radio tower in my head, like it's still broadcasting, still reaching out, like it's asking if I made the right choice. We're only a day away now. Keel found the slope where vegetation starts to change. It's faint but real. A few green shoots. A patch of moss where runoff must collect. Something lives here, something grows. And up ahead, just past the rise, smoke. Thin and dark. Controlled. Not wild. Campfire or chimney, a sign of life. Or a warning. If you're still listening, if this broadcast makes it back to the tower, tell them we followed the myth. Tell them we saw smoke. Tell them we're almost there. But don't tell them to follow yet. Not until we know the truth. Not until we know if hope is worth the price it demands. You're listening to Apocalypse Radio. Signal faint, battery low. But still alive. Rook out. I crested the final ridge just as dawn bled into the sky. If you can still call that sickly ash-stained glow a dawn. Below me lay Ember Station, framed by the skeletal remains of old waterworks and half-buried. Solar panels that arced into the dust-choked sky like metal reeds. A narrow plume of pale steam curled from the central tower's vent stack. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst my chest. Keel was beside me, breathing shallow, eyes wide. Neither of us spoke. We simply stared. Two ghosts at the edge of a miracle. Ember Station was real. We slipped down through ruined orchards, dried trunks that once bore fruit, now bleached and brittle. Roots cracked through concrete. In places, tufts of moss clung stubbornly to shaded foundations. Water dripped in sleepy rhythms from pipes under repair, echoing through the abandoned corridors. I moved carefully, scanning for patrols. The station's walls were dotted with arrow slits, evidence it had been fortified in the worst days. I could taste tension in the air, like an electrical charge before a storm. We approached the gate, two steel doors flanked by guard towers. Solar-powered floodlights, currently dormant, hung like empty eyes above rusted barbed wire. The emblem on the wall was simple. A crescent moon cradling a droplet. The moon. A symbol, a joke, or perhaps an apology. A voice hailed us from the gate, not through the loudspeaker, direct human. "Identify yourselves," said the woman, rifle trained at the slit. Her voice was calm, rehearsed, professional. I raised my hands slowly. "I'm Rook, that's Keel. We heard your broadcast. We've come seeking water, safe water, to trade our skills for a place here." She studied me with cold precision. I felt more naked than I had in years. "Step forward," she said. Inside, Ember Station was a city in miniature. Corridors lined with salamanders. Long metal tanks where algae glowed faint green under LED fixtures. Behind glass, fish swam in circulating channels. A team of engineers in charcoal gray coveralls checked gauges and scribbled in logs. Farther, and I saw the heart of the place. A sunken courtyard ringed by reinforced glass. In its center was an open pond. Crystal clear water, lapping gently against polished stone. Steam rose from vents below, drawing warmth up through grated floors. I pressed my forehead to the glass, watching my reflection fragment among the ripples. This is the turning point. I swallowed hard, tasting grit and hope. The woman, guard at first, now tacit negotiator, led us to a central hall. Pipes and wires snaked along the ceiling like veins. A digital board flickered. Reservoir level, 83% daily output. 12,000 L solar array. Efficiency, 75% population capacity. 120. Current, 87. She introduced herself. Cass, technical lead. Former hydrologist. Cass's eyes were haunted with data, like she carried spreadsheets in her bones. She asked us our story. I told her about the signal, the raid, the corpse in the riverbed, my lost son, about every desperate lie I'd nearly told, the women I'd betrayed, the man I'd become. Keel spoke of chemistry, how to treat exhaust steam for drinking, how to refine brackish runoff with charcoal distillers, how to rebuild broken membranes from scavenged silicone wafers. Cass listened. Then she nodded. We might have room, she said. But then her gaze sharpened. But we need to know your hearts. Ember's a community. We share everything. Water, power, knowledge. And we protect it with our lives. I felt the weight of her words. Protection could mean bullets. Death for the greedy. Then the rumble started. A low, distant roar, like tectonic plates grinding. The walls shuddered. Alarms blared red around the hall. Engineers sprinted for consoles. Cass drew her sidearm. Dust storm, she snapped. And it's not natural. Outside, the sky had gone from ash gray to a churning kaleidoscope of copper and slate. Electrical discharges flickered across the horizon. I pressed my hand to the glass pane next to me. A spark of energy arced off the metal, singeing my palm. We've tapped a geothermal vent too close, Cass shouted. The quake destabilized the retention dome. If the storm breaches the filters, the entire aquifer could be contaminated with superheated brine. Every mind there froze. 20 minutes, Cass barked. We have 20 before the pond goes toxic. My pulse surged. 20 minutes to save them, or watch Ember turn into a tomb. I grabbed Keel's arm. We need to seal the vent's valve, reroute the cyclone filters. I can help, Cass turned. You? How do I know you're not saboteurs? I stared at the rippling water beyond the glass. This place was life incarnate. I thought of Eli's empty bed, of every night I'd pedaled the generator in the dark, hoping to coax his voice back through. The static. I closed my eyes, because this is the same fight I've been waging. For every lost drop, every stray soul. I didn't come for mercy. I came for a chance to protect something worth saving. She measured me. Then, as the quake rattled the building, she nodded. Fine. You're with me. We sprinted through corridors as the station groaned. In the turbine chamber, steam hissed from ruptured pipes. Engineers scrambled to divert it. Sparks flew when hot brine hit cold metal. Keel and I flanked Cass at a panel of valves. He riffled through a binder. Schematics. I twisted knobs, redirected conduits, rerouted steam to secondary vents. The station shook again. A crack echoed as a support beam gave way somewhere above. I felt heat on my back. Superheated steam sprayed through a rupture. I dove, feeling flesh blister. Pain seared up my leg. I bit back a scream. Keel hit the final valve. Water pressure steadied. The quake subsided into distant tremors. The alarms silenced. The station held. I hit my palm to the wall, sliding down, gasping. Cass crouched beside me. You saved us, she said quietly, voice trembling. We'll owe you our lives. Shut my eyes. For a moment I felt the steady pulse of power and water, the hum of generators, the gentle rise and fall of the station's lungs. Life. When I came to, Ember's courtyard was lit by soft luminescence. Engineers were celebrating. Small cheers, relieved laughter. A child darted through the glass atrium, chasing a moth. I hadn't seen that many living wings in years. Cass found me on the outer walkway. She looked at my charred jacket, the gauze. On my leg, the dark stain under my shirt. She pulled off a first aid kit and knelt. I let her. "Why?" she asked, tending my wounds. "Why risk yourself for a place that might have turned you away?" I watched the pond ripple, felt my blood, pulse in time with it. Because I needed a refuge more than I needed a signal. Because maybe this is what we fight for. Not just survival, but home. She didn't smile. No one here smiled lightly. But there was something like warmth in her eyes. That night, under a sky still missing its moon, Ember's generators hummed steady. The pond's surface reflected firefly lamps strung around the courtyard. I stood at the edge, feeling the soft breeze carrying moisture for the first time in years. Keel joined me, offering a canteen. I drank deep. The water was cool, mineral-rich, tasted of hope. We didn't have all the answers. The quake and dust, storm were symptoms of deeper fractures, geological, environmental, societal. But for the first time, I believed we could heal instead of merely survive. Cass's broadcast crackled in my pack. To all listeners, if you're out there, follow. The river spine north. Ember Station stands ready. Together, we'll rebuild more than walls. We'll rebuild us. Her words echoed in my chest. Not a fairy tale, not a lie, a promise. I turned away from the water and spoke into my recorder. Rook to all survivors. Ember. Station is real. Water flows, power lives. We stood on the edge of collapse tonight and we fought back. If you hear this, you're not alone. There's a place for you. A home still worth saving. I paused, feeling the recorder's soft hum. In my hand. In the absence of the moon, we are each other's light. Keep broadcasting, keep believing we're coming back from the dark. I press stop. Somewhere in the void, I know a signal is traveling, carried on airwaves that outlast storms and quakes. And in the echo of every lost voice, there's a spark that says, we survived this far, we can go further. Tonight, Ember stands. Tomorrow, we rise. The echo of the quake and the hiss of escaping steam have finally faded into memory. Ember Station stands intact, its heartbeat steadier now, generators humming like machines waking from fever. The water in the courtyard pond ripples under the gentle glow of the firefly lamps. I lean against the cool glass, watching my reflection blur into the calm surface. Outside, the copper-tinged sky is still thick with ash, but the edges of the horizon seem to soften, as if the dust is settling. The vicious roar of that last storm has given way to an uneasy stillness. I take a shallow breath, tasting the moisture in the air, fresh, clean, alive. It's the first real breath I've taken in weeks. Outcome of the climax. Our gamble paid off. Rerouting the vents prevented the superheated brine from flooding the aquifer. The filters held. Ember's water remained safe. Engineers set to work, repairing torn membranes, patching pipes, and reinforcing the dome. Solar arrays were cleared of debris, the panels angled to maximize the weak sunlight. Within hours, power was restored to full capacity. Cass convened a council that night. She invited Keel and me to speak before the gathered community. I felt every eye on me, survivors and engineers alike, watching to see if the rumors were true. I told them what I'd said into my recorder, how Ember had saved itself and how we had come to fight alongside them rather than against them. They believed me. They cheered. And I realized in that moment how starved we all were for victories. Small or large, in the absence of the moon, we clung to such moments like they were miracles. The station expanded its intake. The research team isolated new vent sources, tapping cold groundwater from deeper chambers. I joined nightly patrols in the orchard, Bruins checking for poisoned runoff or structural fractures. Keel headed the filtration upgrade, designing a secondary charcoal stage system that boosted output by 20%. For the first time since the collapse, I slept without nightmares. The silence was no longer oppressive. It was restorative. I dreamed of pools of water in moonlight, although the real moon was gone, and of laughter echoing through the orchards. Yet hope doesn't erase fear. We all know that the planet's wounds run deep. Earth's systems won't heal overnight. The quakes and storms are symptoms of an unraveling balance. We celebrate today's victory, but we plan for tomorrow's challenges. I've traded the solitary life of the broadcaster for the communal rhythms of Ember. My radio tower stands reassembled on a reinforced platform, its reach extended by a new relay station on a nearby rise. Now it transmits not just my voice, but a network of signals, weather reports, resource maps, educational broadcasts, and messages from survivors weighing whether to make the trek north. I no longer pedal alone. I have a team, 2 radio technicians who rebuilt the transmitter's power supply, a cartographer who maps ghost towns and water sources, and a small crew of scouts who bring in dispatches each dawn. We share meals, nutrient bars, and reconstituted. And then we joke, however darkly, about remembering the good old days when water fell from the sky and phones really worked. Inside me, a change has taken root. The grief that once hollowed my chest has softened into a tender ache. I think of Eli, my son, every day. I carry his picture in a pocket, next to the nicotine-free lozenges I chew to ward off dust cough. I talk to him sometimes, imagining he's listening from wherever he is. I tell him I found a place that deserves to be called home, but the old rook still whispers doubts in my ear. He reminds me of every person I couldn't save, every lie I told to survive. I don't mute that voice, I channel it. I use it to drive me to be better, to take responsibility for those under my broadcast, in my community, and beyond. Environmental recovery or continued decline. Nature is stirring in small ways. In the South Orchard, sprouts of drought-resistant grasses, previously thought extinct in this latitude, are pushing through the cracked soil. Algae cultures in the bioreactors have begun yielding usable oils, a potential new fuel source. Engineers have reported an uptick in insect life inside the station's controlled biodomes. Pollinators for the greenhouse crops, a sign that closed ecosystems can rebound if given the chance, but outside those walls the land remains harsh. Satellite drones, few functional ones left, transmit images of sinkholes opening in riverbeds, of salt pans expanding along the dried estuaries. The permafrost melt in northern latitudes keeps releasing methane, fueling regional heat domes that bake the land for months. Mass migration continues, thousands pushing northward, chasing colder temperatures that are themselves rising decade by decade. Ember's walls are not enough to stop the world from crumbling around us. Yet they are proof that healing is possible, at least in pockets. Our strategy now is one of small-scale resilience. Water stations every 50 miles, portable solar filter rigs distributed to survivor enclaves, data-sharing networks to map hazards and safe corridors. We're fighting a hydra of disasters. Drought, heat waves, storms, societal breakdown. But each tentacle can be addressed with targeted action. We may not restore the planet to its pre-collapse condition, but we can carve out havens of stability and purpose. I walk the courtyard at dawn, tapping my recorder for the morning bulletin. I describe the station's repairs, the orchards, new growth, and the migrant caravan that arrived last night. 24 souls, gaunt but smiling, carrying seeds and solar reflectors. We welcomed them into Ember's walls. I directed them to the water taps, gave them dry blankets, and taught them our filter protocols. On the mic, I sign off with a phrase that's become our mantra. In the absence of the moon, we become each, others light. It's more than a slogan now, it's a promise and a call to arms. I look up at the blank sky. The moon will never return in full, not for our lifetime. But maybe that's fitting. We don't need a distant luminary to guide us. We're the stars now, each of us burning with our own small brightness. Together we form constellations of survival and solidarity. The dust may settle or swirl again. The vents may quake or steam anew. I know hardships await, but I also know that every day we meet those hardships, not as lone souls fighting invisible enemies, but as a community bound by shared purpose. The man I was, satellite technician, husband, father, would scarcely recognize this life. Yet, I feel closer to him now than I have since the collapse, because I've found a mission beyond transmission, to rebuild not just machines, but trust, not just infrastructure, but humanity. When I press the record button tonight, I'll speak into the static with confidence, because I've seen water flow, because I've watched new life sprout from broken earth, because I've watched strangers become family, and in the end, that is the truest form of hope. You're listening to Apocalypse Radio. Stay with us. Stay together. Stay human. I stand at the edge of Ember's courtyard where the first pale shoots of dawn, ash-filtered and feeble, touch the rippling water. The pond's surface shimmers like fractured glass, reflecting the placid blue of hope. I've begun to feel in my bones. Behind me, the hum of generators blends with distant voices, children's laughter, the clink of tools, the rustle of tendrils in our greenhouse rows. And yet beyond these walls, the world is still dying. I don't know if I'll ever see the moon again. Maybe it slipped beyond our reach, cast into oblivion by a climate gone mad. Perhaps it drifted into the void, stolen by forces beyond even our understanding. Or maybe it waits, unseen behind a shroud of ash and dust. None of that feels real anymore. What matters is what we choose to believe. Hope is a treacherous thing. It bursts into your heart like a seed that's been dormant too long, promising bloom and fruit. But if the soil is barren, that seed rots, leaving only the scent of betrayal. I know this because I've buried too many hopes, lost camps, failed, water bores, abandoned rescue convoys. I've held the smallest glimmers in my palm, only to watch them die before my eyes. Yet here in Ember Station, I feel that seed's first pulse of life. Yesterday, we harvested the first pods of our greenhouse. Peas, bright green jewels after months of brittle husks. They tasted faintly sweet, nothing like the rehydrated sludge we'd come to call dinner. I watched the children cracking them open with dirty fingers, eyes wide. In their laughter, I heard something raw and unguarded, as if they'd never known, a life less sacred. But I also saw fear flicker across their faces when the generators faltered for a moment. A single sputter sent them ducking for cover. In that instant, I understood the true cost of hope. It's always one step away from collapse. We've stocked supplies, canned goods, medical kits, seeds, spare parts, and yet we know it's not enough. Ember is a single oasis in a desert. Ruin? We've sent out patrols to establish relay points, water trap stations hidden in canyons, solar filter pods mounted on old cell towers, emergency shelters carved into abandoned subway shafts. Each node is a testament to resilience, and each comes with a heartbeat that could stop at any moment. A breakdown here, a raid there, a storm, or a quake. Anyone could sever the fragile threads of our network. But we press on, because in every new relay that springs to life, we plant a flag against despair. We draw a line in the dust and say, here we stand, here we fight, here we remember how to be human. Nightfall still carries its terrors. The dust storms rage with renewed ferocity, sometimes pummeling Ember's walls for days. The acrid air seeps through filters, reminding us why we built these barriers in the first place. Raiders skulk beyond the perimeter, testing guard posts for weaknesses. Communities further afield signal distress, some with calls for help, others with demands for tribute. And yet, this struggle is not new. It's the same fight we've been waging since the moon went dark and the rivers ran dry. Survival is not a single battle. It's 1,000 small ones every hour of every day. I've accepted that I will never be finished. There is no triumphant finale, no grand reveal that all is well. The best we can hope for is a momentary reprieve. Day's water, a patch of green, a night without raids. And we fight for those moments because they matter. So here's what I want you to hear. Wherever you are, whatever storm you're weathering, the world you knew is gone. The moon may never return. The rivers you relied on may be dust. Your hands will bleed. Your heart will break. You will doubt the very air you breathe. And yet, you are still here. You still breathe. You still imagine a better dawn. That is never nothing. If you have water, guard it fiercely, but share it when you can. If you have seeds, plant them in hope and in remembrance. If you have hands, build. If you have voice, broadcast your story into the void, because you may be the light someone else needs. We are the stewards of what remains. We are the ones who carry the embers of the old world into the new dawn. We are the constellation of survivors, each of us a star in a sky that has lost its moon. And though our light may flicker, it will not go out until we allow it. Tonight, I'll ascend the radio tower one last time. Well, for now. I'll tighten the bolts, test the feed lines, and then I'll speak, not as Rook, the lone broadcaster, but as we, a community stitched together by water and wire, by earth and empathy. I'll speak of Ember's victories and its vulnerabilities. I'll speak of the families we've welcomed and the patrols we've lost. I'll speak of the storm that nearly broke us and the hands that reached out to hold us together. And then I'll say goodbye. Not because this is the end, but because we must each carry our own light forward. The tower stands tall, but its signal depends on you tuning. To me, this story depends on you living on. To every survivor under the ash-laden sky, this is the final broadcast from Ember Station's central transmitter. Rook speaking for all of us. We found water, built walls, and kindled life where none should be. Yet our journey is, far from over. Tonight, plant your seeds, refill your canteens, and steel your hearts for what comes next. We are the last constellation in a sky without a moon, but together we shine brighter than any celestial body. Keep fighting, keep building, keep believing. In the absence of the moon, let us be each other's light. I press end. The silence that follows is not empty. It is full. Full of possibility, full of challenge, full of the unspoken pact between every soul striving to survive. And as I step down from the tower, the generators hum at my back, and the courtyard lanterns glow. Ahead I know this, our story does not end here. It twists and turns down every dusty road, inside every salvaged shelter, across every newborn leaf. It will be written by the hands that plant crops, and the voices that broadcast hope. The moon is gone, but we remain. And as long as we stand, there is light.